So then we go on to, I want to say probably the most infamous match on the show. However, the main event might rival it. And I want to make sure you've taken your heart medicine and you're in a good. You got some Zen music playing in the background. You're sitting cross-legged and you're meditating, because I know this one will rile you up a little bit.
Absolutely.
So we have the NWA World Tag Team Title match. You have the Horsemen, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, with James J. Dillon. They come in as the champions against the challengers, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, with Precious Paul Ellering. And yeah, take it away, Donnie. I mean, I know this one is near and dear to your heart for all the wrong reasons, but wow, this is there's a lot of build to this one.
Yeah, coming into wrestling as a fan in '86 and being a Road Warrior fan, you look at those guys and you say, how are they not the tag team champions? You know, they weren't the NWA tag team champions. They were first feuding with Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez at the time. You'd hear about their title shots, but not really how they went or what the results were. You might see them in magazines. And there was just, maybe they got pulled away into a feud with the Horsemen, helping out Dusty. But this was finally, they're getting their shot in Chicago, their hometown, at Starrcade. I mean, the setting was perfect. It was great leading up to it. It felt like this feud had been going on forever, but it really hadn't. They had just won the titles, Tully and Arn, maybe in September. We could fact check on that, but it was just a couple of month period. And the Road Warriors, I mean, they really didn't have a reason or a feud. I think it was just more of again, number one contenders. Now is their time type of thing. And that's what set it up here. I mean, they had feuded with the Horsemen. They had War Games prior in 1987, and it felt like it was their time finally. Because I've heard the argument all the time that the Road Warriors didn't need the belts, but my return to that has always been, realistically, how do you explain why they're not? I mean, look at them. Why are they not winning the tag titles? Because realistically, they should beat all these other teams that you're looking at. That was always what's what bothered me about it.
Yes, they did win the titles on September 29th. So the end of September 1987.
Right. So it was so close. It felt like Tully and Arn had been champions forever, but they really hadn't.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I get the, you hear the argument all the time with guys like Roddy Piper and Jake the Snake Roberts that they don't need titles. Understood. That's a little bit different, because you can see Jake Roberts and Roddy Piper not winning a title. It's not a given, right? They have to, it's their zeal and their tenacity and their skill. But you look at Hawk and Animal, especially at that time, it's harder to explain why they don't have the titles. I agree with you 100%. And at some point, you have to give them that run and give them the titles. And wouldn't you do it in Chicago on the biggest show of the year?
I think so. And when you're competing against WWF on a brand new show, you want to beat them on.
Exactly. Like, I mean, just get that mega pop and make it last. So the match itself, I think you hear the term, it was a typical Road Warriors match a lot, and I don't think that's fair. This match was solid, if not really solid.
Yeah, I think so. I think of note, too, we talk about the pop and everything at the beginning. It's notable that the Road Warriors actually came out to the Crockett Cup theme on this show, on the live show. The Crockett Cup, the infamous music video. I know you're familiar with it, but they actually used that as their theme music on this night. I think this was the first night where it's like, oh, we're on live TV. We can't use music. What the hell do we do? Type of situation. Road Warriors aren't going to use Frank Stallone's music like everybody else. You got to give them something unique. So Crockett Cup thing was definitely unique.
I mean, if they had Jumbotrons back in the day, if they had come out with the Crockett Cup video that accompanied that theme, that would have been amazing.
Agreed.
So the match itself, I mean, Hawk is on fire. I mean, his drop kicks for a guy that was 265, 270 pounds. Holy cow. I mean, like hitting Arn in the forehead. I mean, it was just amazing athleticism for such a big guy at that time. Multiple military press slams on Arn Anderson. I mean, that probably doesn't happen a lot.
Right. I think this was perfect. It was just perfect the way they worked this match. This was actually the match I was referencing in the previous match. I think they just worked it exactly as it should have been worked. I mean, Tully and Arn could not figure out how to get an advantage on them, and they kept getting hit with everything, and the crowd was loving it. I think they just set it up perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, it was realistic. Like,
yeah,
Arn and Tully aren't going to get beat in 5 minutes, but they were the ones having trouble to try to figure out the mystery that is the Road Warriors.
Right.
Animal spitting on James J. Dillon. Oh my gosh, that got. I talk about the top 5 pops of the night. That had to be one of them. When he spit on him, it was crazy.
Yeah, Chicago was rabid for everything the Road Warriors were doing that night. They were so ready.
Yeah, you have a big hot tag to Animal, worked perfectly. Everybody went nuts as they should. Of course, then it was cut off by a nut shot again because, like I said, bad camera work, nut shots, bad finishes, and ref bumps. That was a Starrcade 87. So, the nut shot strikes again.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I don't know. This is where everything starts to go haywire, I think, with the booking a little bit.
Yep. So you go into the ref bump by Tommy Young, and he goes to the floor. Arn is thrown over, we'll say for now. I'll probably use a better term later. But he is lifted over, thrown over the top rope by Animal, gets back in. They hook him up for the Doomsday device. They hit it. In comes Earl Hebner, counts the 3 count. The place is nuts. The place goes wild. The UIC Pavillion, the roof is shaking. And then Tommy Young, in his infinite wisdom, says that from the floor, even though the cameraman missed it, he saw Animal throw Arn Anderson over the top. He's reversing it. It was a disqualification. The belts stay with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. Ugh. Yikes, ugh, meh. I don't know what term you want to use here, but man, horrible, 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 horrible.
The night they killed Chicago is what I'll go with. I think that's been what everybody says because it's just the dusty finish situation had been used so much, and this was just the worst possible place for it. I mean, it's just, the logic. If you have to see it, I mean, if Animal had grabbed Arn by the hair and tossed him over the top rope, I would get it. This was simply Arn is charging Animal against the ropes. Adam, what is he supposed to do? Just take the move, or is he supposed to duck down? I don't know. He simply backdropped him kind of over the top rope, and they're calling it. It was just a bullshit finish.
The over the top rule is my least favorite rule in professional wrestling history, other than when you can't come off the top rope and hit moves. That era was even worse. But throwing somebody over the top rope, so subjective. It always. Whatever makes sense for the match is how they call it. You can't call it straight down the middle because there is no middle. So the momentum carrying you over, whether you're getting thrown off or whether you're diving over somebody, if you touch them, is it momentum or are you being thrown over? This was not only a bad decision, but a really bad way to enact the dusty finish. And I hated it.
Yeah. Needless to say, I hate it. It was what I was looking forward to most on this show, I think. Finally, to see the Road Warriors with the titles and to be out of it this way, it just did not work at all.
So the DQ comes at 13:27, and I stand corrected. I said earlier that the scaffold match was the highest rating one from Meltzer. This actually was the highest rated match at 3.5 stars. I don't think that the rating is bad. I think if the match ends as it, as we fans thought it should end, I think it's a 3.5 star match. The crowd, the emotion, I thought it was done perfectly. You have 4 of the greatest of all time in there, 2 of the greatest tag teams of all time. And it was fine. I mean, it's probably maybe even a 4-star match had the finish been differently, but I think 3.5 stars is fair.
Yeah, I think so too. The match was great. You never saw the Road Warriors lose, and you had to get creative at this point. What they were not going to get the belts. I mean, how many dusty finishes can you see? How many weird DQs can you see? I had seen a lot already. And these just continued on. Another thing, Chicago, being an AWA town, had already seen the Road Warriors with the AWA tag belts and have a great run throughout being heels and then semi-turning face toward the end. They had dominated the AWA, and then they're here in the NWA. They just can't get a title win no matter what. It just, I don't know. It sent them on a weird spiral at this point.
So any other final thoughts on this before we move on and get you out of these bad memories?
I just think this was LOD's prime. I mean, this was the prime time. I mean, there was no better period, I don't think, for the Road Warriors. This is when they were absolutely hot. They were main eventing everywhere. I mean, after this, they just kind of they turned the year after, and it was like a weird turn. They couldn't turn them. The fans wouldn't accept it. They just didn't know what to do. I think this was a starting point for Road Warriors jumping the shark, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, they're the greatest tag team of all time. Some people will fight you on that, but I'm right there with you. I think they're the greatest tag team of all time. And this would have been one of those iconic moments that we would talk about for the right reasons instead of the wrong reasons.
And I think they had a great run continuous in WWE, but I think they changed a little bit. They calmed it down a little bit. They were badasses in this period, and cage matches, bunkhouse matches, whatever it may be. They were ready to fight in this era. And this was kind of the culmination of it on this night.